Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a massive macroeconomic mystery that is unfolding right now across the African continent. Researcher Oluyomi Ola-David set out to investigate this huge puzzle, and honestly, her findings, they suggest the way we think about education and economic growth might need a complete overhaul. So let's just jump right into her incredible research.
Section 1. The African Growth Paradox. High growth, missing industry. Okay, let's dive into this.
To really understand the paradox she set out to solve, we just need to look at the last few decades. Africa is home to about 60% of the world's fastest growing economies. Seriously, 60%. That is a staggering statistic. On paper, you'd completely assume these economies are modernizing at breakneck speed, right? But when you look on the ground, that pattern of growth hasn't actually resulted in dramatic changes to the fundamental structure of these economies. And to understand what's missing here, we really need to talk about structural transformation. Now, according to conventional economic wisdom, this basically means transferring your labor force out of low productivity sectors like basic agriculture and into high productivity sectors, primarily manufacturing. Think of it like this. It's like graduating from selling raw wheat at a local market to running a massive, high-tech, automated bakery that exports finished pastries. That upgrade, that's structural transformation. Which brings us to the ultimate detective story. With 60% of the fastest growing economies, why hasn't this growth changed the economic structure? I mean, we have the GDP boom, but that high-tech manufacturing sector, it's practically missing. And in a globalized world, a booming continent without industry impacts global supply chains everywhere. This glaring gap is exactly what led her to investigate further. Section 2. The Schooling Growth Puzzle, Looking Beyond the Basics. So, development experts routinely point to education as the missing puzzle piece for economic development. But as she dug into the data, she realized we might literally be looking at the completely wrong kind of education. And this brilliantly illustrates the issue. For years, the global focus has been heavily skewed toward basic education and basic cognitive skills. And to be clear, that has been highly successful. But the future necessity for a modern, technology-intensive world requires complex, post-secondary skills. The skills you need to run a high-tech manufacturing sector, well, they aren't acquired in primary school. They are acquired at the university level. So she proposes this powerful yes and approach. Yes, we absolutely need basic education, but the true missing catalyst for that structural transformation, it's high-quality post-secondary education. You see, the difference in schooling quality across countries isn't really found at the elementary level. That quality gap becomes massively magnified at the university level. She hypothesized that this specific quality gap is exactly what's stalling manufacturing. Section 3. Measuring Human Infrastructure, Building a New Database. Now, having a great hypothesis is one thing, right? But proving it required her to build a completely new database from scratch. I mean, how do you reliably measure the quality of post-secondary schooling across an entire, highly diverse continent? You can't just count the number of universities, because a degree from one institution might not reflect the exact same skill level as another. You really need a standardized metric. And here was her brilliant aha moment. To probe this causal relationship, she used country-level average GMAT test scores as her primary metric. Because the GMAT is a globally standardized test taken by tertiary students, using these average scores provided a uniform, undeniable way to measure the actual cognitive capability of post-secondary students across different African nations. Pretty clever, right? Of course, in economics, you have to be rigorous. You can't just compare test scores and manufacturing output and call it a day, because skeptics will immediately point out a million other factors. So she meticulously controlled for a huge variety of variables. She accounted for corruption, the black market premium, institutional quality, geography, education budget allocations, and even the occupational mix of graduates. By filtering all of that out, her model perfectly isolated just the pure impact of education quality on manufacturing. Section 4. The Manufacturing Connection, Education Meets Industry. Now, what's really interesting about this next part is the sheer undeniable impact of her data. So, where does all that rigorous data collection lead us? Right to the factory floor. The results of her analysis were completely definitive. She established a powerful, statistically significant relationship. When the quality of university-level education goes up, a country's capacity to build and sustain large-scale manufacturing businesses goes up right alongside it. Schooling quality doesn't just make individuals smarter, it actually drives human capital accumulation, which directly fuels the adoption of brand new production technologies.
And to back up these findings with real-world historical precedent, she points to Asian exemplars. Countries like South Korea and Singapore successfully navigated the exact structural transformation Africa is currently aiming for. Their strategy? Well, both placed a massive, deliberate emphasis on education quality in both their policies and their actual practices. The result was high human development and complete structural transformation. She is showing us that this blueprint isn't just theoretical, it's proven.
Section 5. Upgrading the future beyond the MDGs. So, how does her research shape the path forward for global development policies? Well, she lays out a really clear progression. Step 1 was prioritizing universal basic education, and honestly, that base is largely built. Now, we absolutely must move to Step 2, heavy investment in the quality of secondary and post-secondary schooling. You just cannot skip this step, because only by doing Step 2 can we reach Step 3, achieving true structural transformation, accelerated economic development, and ultimately massive poverty reduction. We're going to leave you with this really powerful quote from Oluyomi Oladevid herself. While regulatory reforms are necessary, upgrade of human infrastructure is most crucial for the transformation of African economies. We spend so much time and money building physical infrastructure, right? Roads, bridges, power grids, but her data proves that the most vital infrastructure a nation can build is the minds of its highest level students. It leaves us with an absolutely critical question. When will global development finally start treating the quality of higher education not just as a luxury, but as humanity's most essential infrastructure? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring.